of education. We have a lot more family members picking up the teacher palette, so to speak, with this social distance learning, with the closing of our schools. And if we're looking at this Black pandemic and an overall basis of where and how do we go, we know one of the major things have always been the lack there of education. Brother Malcolm X has always alluded to the fact that, we are being educated by our enemies, and that it's kind of foolish that we continue to bring our children to places that don't look like us and are not for us. So in design, with everything that's going on, we have this new outcome. So we had to bring some superstar special guest educators. Queen Lisa, go ahead first, and then you guys kind of chime in as far as just give us a little quick introduction, who you are, where you're at, and then we can jump in this conversation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lisa. I am from the East Coast, but living in the Midwest right now and working with young people to try to get through this, but also been doing youth development work for the past 10, 15 years, teaching, after school programs, and also during the day, third grade through college. And so right now I'm focusing on middle school and high school Black girls and their identity.
And you about to get your PhD, player. Don't try to be shy.
Yeah.
You're gonna talk about that Black excellence.
Working on be Dr. Lisa soon. Yep.
Oh, congrats. One of the kings, step on in.
Super dope. So I'll jump right in. Queen Lisa, so nice to meet you for the first time, and thank you Barry and Mama Ro for having us on your platform this morning. My name is Hakeem Kroon. I'm from Harlem, New York, so that East Coast thing, I definitely was excited to hear that. All the way in California. Definitely coming from back home and being in California, just the experience, we'll talk a little bit about that as it pertains to education. But currently I work at a Black Cultural Center for higher education. I've been a student affairs practitioner for about 8 years. And so, doing the work that we do and what I do is, providing academic and support services, advocating on behalf of students of African descent, making sure that they're persisting, being retained, and ultimately getting their college degree. And on the side of that, I'm an aspiring author working on a book. I just got my master's degree. So, Queen Lisa, we leveling up. So I just finished the program, Educational Leadership and Policy Studies from Sac State. And so speaking on the side as well, and telling our story and doing all I can to liberate the minds of people that look like me. So I feel like that's my life's purpose. So
bless.
I'm Khalid White, educator here in the Bay Area for about the last 15 years. Started off with K-12, but now working in higher ed. In addition to that, author, filmmaker, business owner, and just a lover of education, lover of people, lover of Black people. I'm glad to be on the show, so thank you all for having me.
Bless. We have an all-star lineup. As you guys know, what inspired us to kind of do this series was a simple fact that I think too often we act as if this is a new trend when this has constantly been our plight. When the Mr. Diddy was saying we're in a state of emergency, I would have liked him say we are in a continuous state of emergency. How do we plan and play ourselves out of it, not making it seem like here comes a pandemic and things just happen. I just got done listening to the great brother Malcolm X, just getting in touch with my ancestors. And the same problems he's discussing are the same problems we deal with currently today. Now, the big thing about education right now, as we see it, we're hearing social distancing, learning. I just want to know from y'all, from a perspective, what does that mean and how do you feel it will empower, or how will you think that it might crush our kids currently right now in this public school system that we're in?
I see it personally. I see it as a mixed bag. Right now, the bag is not looking too good. Social distancing, right? Just that term in and of itself. I think that when our youth go into public school systems in specific, there's already some distance because they don't feel, that it works for them. They don't feel part of. They're not made to feel like they are important. So the distance is already there. The social part is where a lot of our young people thrive and need. So the fact that, for one, I'm feeling like I don't belong now, and then I don't have my support system in my group there, I think it's a double whammy. And for the select few that have the high-speed internet and have the access and the resources, this may work for them, but you got to be a very self-directed person, and it's hard for somebody who's 8 or 9 to sit in front of a computer for 3 to 4 hours doing online learning and distance learning. I think that's ultimately going to be a detriment. We may not see the results of that till 5-6 years when a 6th grader is now a 12th grader. That's just my 2 cents on it right off the top. Yeah.
I think if I could follow up with King Khalid, I think that, I see it from 2 different angles, right? The first angle, in regards to the distance learning piece, we're taking the human interaction part out of it. For our people, that's detrimental. I think when it comes to how we learn, how we retain information, how we receive information, being in front of computer screens and things of that nature is, it's hard for us, how we learn. We need to be more hands-on, experiential in how we learn, experimental in how we learn. And so I think that on top of that piece, when it comes to the content that we learn, right, on top of what we learn, we're not seeing ourselves in the curriculum. So you want us to be in front of a computer, learning about things that doesn't, for the most part, reflect our experience, our culture, our history, our world history, all these types of things, and expect me to be engaged in this. On top of, the abject poverty and things like that, growing up in particular areas, right? I talk to my folks in Harlem all the time, having internet, having laptops, having a computer, being able to we're assuming a lot that they can even access these things, right? I have students who were taking their finals last week on a cell phone with no computer, right? So we have to figure out how are we getting students laptops, how are we making sure that they have internet, right? So from an equity standpoint, we're the most vulnerable in that. And then you expect us to be able to continue learning and engaging, right? So a lot of students that I'm talking to, they're super unmotivated right now, right? You take, especially in a college experience, right? You on campus, it's this ecosystem is most times, of course, for a lot of us, there's no sense of belonging, but when you have centers like the center that I work at, right? We're every day filling your cup in, we pouring into you, right? So I walk across campus, I'll see a student who looks like me, and I'm like, how you doing, King? How you doing, Queen? How you doing, loved one? That could change a lot for somebody's day, their motivation, how they persist, and having that support system, right? They may not even know me, but because I'm engaging with them like that, that makes all the difference. And so I think we're missing that piece. And so, and with that, I think this is also now given how we, as a people, decide, right, and the folks that are doing this, who are in education, when it comes to doing this kind of work, we do have an opportunity. And I was telling Mama Rodas, Queen Rodas, when it came to the perspective of us changing how we offer education in our own homes, right, and what that looks like for ourselves, and owning the kind of work and kind of curriculum that we're developing as family members, as all those type of things, right? When it comes to reading more books that are about African experience, right, at an early age, and learning that stuff, because I think that's a good foundation when it comes to our students, and that positive racial socialization at a young age of getting that stuff, right? And so I think if we continue to push this narrative and work together to encourage each other as far as resources, where to go, and what kind of books to read, what kind of books that we can look at, what kind of workbooks, things that reflect our culture too. I think there's an opportunity, for students now to learn more about themselves in a more intentional way that they probably wouldn't get from a traditional education, right? So I think there's also an opportunity. So I think as we kind of work together to figure out what that looks like and how we disseminate that information and that part. So I do look at it, from 2 different lenses when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna just jump in. I think that, I'm thinking of Audre Lorde, right?
Mm-hmm.
And something that she said was education is something that you can incite like a riot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I think if we think about what she has said, she has left us blueprints, and remembering that our ancestors left us the blueprints to do this work and to educate, our students, I think that we have to think about how education can also be deflated, right? Like a balloon. And so I think that in this time, education, if you're in a household that you even have a device, right? You even have a laptop, you have, like some folks already said, then you're already lucky. But if you don't have that, you're already behind the curve. And we know that Black students, are already behind the curve even before the pandemic, right? And so just as a result of 500 years of a pandemic, right, and what that has looked like and how we've learned to survive those, we're learning and evolving to survive this as well. And so whether it's, setting up community hotspots, right, where students just are able to walk there, or parents can drive them if they're not an essential worker, right? So we're trying to think about who has the privilege to stay at home to educate their kids. So I think there are a lot of different pieces here that we have. A lot of our students are grow up fast, but are growing up faster now with this in mind, and it's draining them if they are in front of the computer for 3 and 4 hours a day. I don't like to be in front of the computer for that long. Right. So what is that doing to the psyche and self-esteem and just social skills of students already? So I think those are some things that we, need to think about as well.
Wow. Powerful answers. Queen Mama Ro, I see you over there contemplating your thoughts, baby girl. What, Doc?
You know me, I'm doing engineering stuff, so I'm like figuring out stuff. But sometimes I kind of think that the people, like today is Malcolm X's birthday, and he's not known for any of his education in formal schools, which allows me to believe that's not what the answer is for me. I'm from Philadelphia, so I'm an East Coaster at heart. I know my people from the South. I'm from South Carolina, from St. Helena. My dad's side, my mom's side is from Brazil and Virginia. And so I think while education is important, I think sometimes we think we know young people, because I've been doing girl empowerment work for like over 30 years, building clinics, not just here in the US, but also in Honduras, worked a lot in Cuba, worked a lot in South Africa. I worked all over the globe where there have been Black people. So when I go into Latin America, I'm going to where the Black people are, because there's more Black people in Latin America than there are here in the United States. But we don't talk about that. So while I think all of this is important, I think young people are brilliant, just like their ancestors before them. And sometimes when we get into a crunch, young people will show up. Now, if we come to them like they don't know what they're doing, or you're being oppressed right now, they're going to ride that till the wheels fall off. But what I've known for all the years that I've worked in the schools for close to 30 years, doing girl empowerment programs, young people have a way of making opportunity out of no way, because they're descendants of a whole group of people who've been doing that for the last 400 years. I watch young people do all kind of amazing things with technology. And sometimes we skip over that. But the other part is that if they can have guidance, brother, before we got on, King, you talked about the elder that you was building with in the store. I think sometimes we leave out those kind of interactions, because to me, that's where you get real education. It's like history is the playbook, but we keep thinking we're inventing something new. But it's really the same old stuff we had before. I'm thinking of my homegirl, Javon, who graduated in a continuation school, who went on to be a doula. And then years later, because Javon got it like that, she from Hunters Point, come from a family, father was a drug dealer, mom was a drug addict. Here's a sister who built clinics throughout the Bay Area. Now she's down in Southern Louisiana running federally qualified clinics. When I was doing my girls program for her in Marin City, and I was noticing that a lot of my girls could not finish school, the first thing Javon said, which to my surprise, so let's open up a school. I was like, what? I'm not an educator like that. We ended up opening up the school, even though she was running several federally qualified clinics. But she figured out how to eke out some money to put some of our kids. We did our own school. I look at stuff like that and know that's really where the answer is. I think you cannot get this system to change. It's not going to work. I spent the last 5 days watching a documentary called Soul Deep. I don't know if y'all have seen it. SOUL Deep. I guess it came out some years ago, but it looked at the history of soul music. And one of the things that was very apparent in there is that Black folks are so creative, but we do not see the value in ourselves. We always think we have to measure stuff by white people, and they're not the measuring stick. These people are not brilliant. They really aren't. I know somehow we've made them gods, if you will, but they're not gods. They're our kids, and they're crazy as hell. So with that being said, I was thinking to myself, wow, we are so powerful. How do we learn from what our ancestors have left us? I don't think it's to do exactly what they did the same, but damn it, having a playbook really helps you to come up with better plays. It helps you to say, okay, this is not going to work, because no system is ever going to correct itself as it concerns us. Just not happening. But what can we do? If we're going to go get the technology, get the information, get the education, get whatever we need, we got to build something from our own. And we have to do it in a mindset that we are so deserving and that we can do it. It's like looking at the world from a surplus and not a deficit. And I listen for that when people are talking. I listen for that, because that's going to tell me. I work with girls and they could be in fighting and do all kinds of, like, oh my God, I can't believe you fight with your brilliant self. Immediately, I'm like, girl, I ain't trying to hear that other stuff. You are brilliant. We know we're all working out some stuff. How can I help you, sis? How can we help each other? And I think that's what education, because when I look at other groups, even though nobody's came here the way we've come here, so I'm very clear on that. But I also know we paved the road for everybody that's here. Everybody is here on the backs of Black folks. So all we got to do is really just stand up and love each other. So I know I kind of said a lot. I know education is important, but I just think sometimes we got to understand we come from the greatest people on earth. I mean, if you understand the process of the enslavement and how we got here, we are the strongest of the strongest of the strongest of the strongest. The only way they can beat you is with your mind.
That's it.
And so we got to like understand we are brilliant. They could throw the whole kitchen sink at us and we're going to still stand up. Because that's who our ancestors are. So there's nothing really weak about us. We just have to turn this thing on and we have all that we need, because we do. I mean, Malcolm X is great. He's 95 years old today if he had lived, blessed memory. But he is known for what he did when the wheels started turning up here. So when he got information, he could do something else with it. It's this other part that we leave out. I think collectively we have more degrees than damn near any other group. But I still haven't seen our real banking system. And we know we have these systems against us at work. Always have been. Always. So we should be used to it at this point. Like, they going to do this. We going to have to do this. We're going to have the real meeting when they leave. I do that with my kids at school. I'll be like, yeah, okay, they're gone. Let me tell y'all something. This is why we can't do this. They be like, oh, I never knew that. You know, those kind of things, because I was raised by elders. So they would give me the real game. And so there's just some things I'm just not going to do in front of other people. Even if I'm doing some crazy, I'm just not going to do it. But you know what I mean? So I just think that's the connection. And when we talk about education, I work a lot for SCOE, Sacramento County Office of Education. And some of us are up there, but when we get up there, we don't be ourselves, because you can't. That takes a lot of guts. I don't know if y'all seen the Spook Who Stepped By the Door. That's a beautiful fantasy film, but I've never met a spook who stepped by the door. I have personally. I met some people went in there with the spirit of the spook and got in there and got spooked. Y'all know I ain't lying.
That speaks to the realest thing. So in a sense of what we're talking about, I think that a lot of us all know that when we integrate within a system, right, designed to keep us defeated, how do we really get the momentum that we need to educate, right? And in a sense that we're right now in this place of chaos, seemingly, but I think that we've all been in chaos, and Blacks have been in immense in chaos. So that's why it's like, this ain't been a state of this has been a state of emergency. This is a lie that you're saying that we just got started in this thing that you say we're in. What should we do at this particular time? Wouldn't this be, because I mean, let's think about it. Haven't we all wanted the system to fall? I mean, Rome is falling as we see, and as we speak right now. Shouldn't this be the right given time to say, well, hey, let's move our children out of the education system that has been failing them anyway and create our own, where we don't have to focus on their attributes of social distance learning, because we also know, my brother, you said it correctly, King, when we talk about the distancing's already been there. You know what I'm saying? It's already been there for us. And socializing is a component that is really, to be honest with you, if we really think about it, all our years of education, you probably put us all together, it's over 100 years. Sometimes them connecting with us kept them going to that school. Real talk. Them connecting with someone that they knew, cared, they could talk to personally, kept them going to that school. Ain't this probably like the best time, y'all, for us to put our resources together and let's say, thank you, but no thank you. What y'all say to that? Lisa, you go first with that, Queen.
I mean, I think that, we really just have to figure out what it looks like, right? We just have to figure out what does it look like for us to do that. And whether it's, like Queen Ro was saying, if we need to create schools, right? How do we do that? What does it look like to create a school that is distance learning only, right? So that people from New York, people from Cali, people from Illinois, right, wherever they are, they can log into that. So I think that it's just a matter of what does it look like. And I think, we figure stuff like this out all the time. So this could be no different, right? The 5 of us here, we could probably figure something out in 10 minutes. Right. And map it out for what it looks like, because I think as much as I think talking is important, I think the action behind it is even, more mobilizing for our communities and what it could look like. So, I think that that's something to first think about, but also just, what creating a new system or creating a system for our kids, we have to just, be mindful that we do not, the same things that they were learning, right? They don't need to learn in this space, right? Like, because there's a lot, Black folks are always left out in the traditional curriculum. And so what would it look like to have classes that focus on Black women, to have classes that focus on Black men, right? So I think we have to really think about what does that structure look like for us, and how can it benefit students who don't have access to laptops, who, might be doing it on their phones, right? Like somebody mentioned before. So I think that that's kind of where we have to start.
Right on.
I'll jump in. I think one of the things, it's very like convoluted, because there's a lot of intersecting things from capitalism to all these different isms, and how we, try to create something that's our own. And I think a lot of times, like even talking about creating our own right now, right? We have, as a community, we got to figure out folks' ideologies, right? Like where folks stand, and like what they, as far as like, are you Black? Are you a nationalist? Are you like, where are you? Are you a humanist? Are you an integrationist? Like all these, because people got different ideologies of how we should move. And so I think trying to, figure out, okay, the folks who want to move in this direction, all right, we're going to plot and plan and figure something out for our own, right? Something that's separate, right? That's even more valuable. And so, and just like Sister Lisa said, in regards to like the accessibility and making sure folks can access whatever we create, I think is super important, right? Because right now, as far as the us being the most vulnerable when it comes to poverty, economics, and things like that, that's going to be the number one thing. We could create something, but as folks have to be able to access it. And I think the second thing I want to kind of talk to a little bit what Queen Ro was talking about, because you said a lot there, and I loved all of it. It was amazing. I think one of the things is too that I've been noticing is that like we've been duped, right? We've been run amok, right? Like to believe that bamboozled, hoodwinked, you know what I mean? To believe that, the books behind Lisa, right? And all the books behind me, everybody got libraries in here, right? We've been duped that's what white people do, right? Having a vast vernacular and addiction, right? That's what white people do. No, that's acting Black, right? So I think that trying to find ways to lead with love, but also like Mama Ro was saying, that positive racial socialization let folks know we are the originators, we are the architect, we created this, right? And so for you to act that way, you actually are acting black. You know what I mean? So changing that narrative. So I found myself in a lot of conversations around being who I am, going back to the hood in Harlem, getting right in, what's good, family, what's popping, all that, woo, 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 all of that, right? And then going into different spaces and being able to hold my own wherever I go, right? And having all those types of things, right? So we are so powerful that I think sometimes, it's hard for us even to believe, because we've been indoctrinated with this misinformation, to believe that we are even that powerful, right? Brother Kaba Kamene said, if somebody tells the perfect lie, the truth becomes unbelievable. And we've been told the perfect lie for such a long time that the truth of who we are to a lot of our people is unbelievable to some folks, right? Some of us do know that we have the capacity, if you dig into history and world history, right? Not American history, but world history with our diaspora, right? Like Mama Ro was saying, being well-traveled and learning how our diaspora has turned grunge into gold throughout world history, right? This is what we do. So I think that's a part too that, for us, as like Queen Lisa was saying, when it comes to the type of education that we're given, it has to be nothing but positive affirmations, socializations, our creations, right? All the things that we manifested through time, through arithmetic, mathematics, all these different things, right? And I think that right now, like I said in my previous comments, I think kind of what you said, King Barry, this is a perfect time, I think, for us to create things, especially with the advent of technology and where we are, and I think just kind of putting some teeth and some action and some resources behind it. But I think one of the things is that there's going to be people who look like us who aren't going to be a part of that, and we understand we're going to be okay with that, because folks have different ideologies, right? Like for me, like working at higher ed, I found myself advocating for Black students, and I have some of my colleagues saying, well, the Black experience is like our Hmong students. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, hell no. It's not like our Hmong students. Like you're glossing over a whole historical context and all these different, you know what I mean? Like, just to say that, right? Because we're all marginalized, right? So we have a shared experience, right? We don't have a shared experience racially and all these different things, right? So I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but I think if we can come together, figure out what that looks like, and taking some steps, we'll figure it out. And I think this is going to be the right time. This is our moment right now. There's going to be a reset. This whole COVID thing, right? And this is a reset for a lot of different industries. So in particular, with education, right? Right now, there's a lot of stuff going on. Education students want to sue. There's a lot of things happening. Tuition, students who have Pell Grants and getting money back and having to pay for online classes versus the in-class experience. So right now, there's some vulnerability, and there's an opportunity to be like, okay, this is a new way, right? This is a new system, a new way, right? And I think that I think we can figure it out, but it's definitely going to take us coming together and kind of the folks who want to build that and do it in an intentional way. That's all.
So I have a question for you all. So considering, I'm agreeing with everything y'all saying. I always figure it like this: what are some of the real basic things we can do to educate and motivate just ourselves? Like, I personally, for over 25 years, I worked with Black women having healthy babies, because that infant mortality has always been high. And what I find, if you really want to impact life, you have to really start at the beginning. So like when a woman is pregnant, you can get her to change her whole life, because new life is coming. Like, she will rebirth herself in the process of giving birth, if you will. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things we can do to help cultivate young people and adults? What are some of the things, like we'll tell people, read to your baby in your stomach, or put music to your belly. Like, we say all that kind of stuff, but it really does impact your baby. What are some of the things that we can do? If I'm a parent listening, I know I want the best for my child. I may not have all of whatever we think we need in resources, but we are the greatest commodity that we have. So what could a person start doing right now with their babies or young folks?
I would say, to answer that question, one of the best things, I think the most and overlooked things, is that we don't necessarily, when building a system or building an organization, how often do you get the input from the people at the bottom, or those most greatly impacted, like the kids or the parents who are essential workers and can't stay home and do the homeschooling, that type of thing, or the childcare workers or things of that sort? How often do we get the input, the buy-in, the knowledge from those who are actually on the ground, experiencing the day-to-day, hands-on ups and downs and challenges? So Excuse me. So I would say to back to your point, to get some of that wisdom and some of that knowledge from those who are actually on the ground floor, and build a system, build an organization, build that cohesion and that unity from the ground up, as opposed to being up here thinking that, well, I know what's best for people on the floor and we can just build it from the top down. That would be one of the things that I would suggest, and one of the things that I would try to include, in reset and trying to reset after this pandemic.
I could jump in. I think one of the first things is turning off the idiot box. You know what I mean? Turning off that TV, that tele-live-vision. You know what I mean? And when it comes to the imagery that we see, our brains we take on images, right, all the time, and you have this subconscious thing working with like different images in your mind, and when you don't see yourself represented, you don't see yourself in particular settings, in particular, different industries, right? Everybody looks this way, everybody looks white, everybody, you know what I mean, right? So from at an early age, you're indoctrinated into this, right? You start to even build, you might not even you don't have the words to articulate it, you don't have the context to know what that is, but you start building an inferiority complex at an early age too, right? Then you go into the real world, you go to schools or whatever, things are said, you might have experiences, and that's compounded over time. So I think as far as when it comes to the television piece, I think that's one of the things I talked to the elder about when I was saying to Queen Roll yesterday. He mentioned that as far as the TV and having, like, I'm not saying don't watch TV at all, right? But I'm saying like limiting, as far as how much you take it in, right? Maybe 1 day a week, 2 days a week, right? And then locking into different things, different activities, or looking at, or having full control of the content, like going on YouTube, looking at videos of. There's a lot of videos in regards to the African experience. Even as an adult, that I always love watching. The other week, I was watching something on, I think it was, I forget. I don't know if it was BBC. I think it was talking about religion in Africa and spiritual, all these different random things, right? So there's things that we can tap in and learn and kind of just and use the technology stuff, but making sure that it's specific to the Black experience. And I think also too, on top of the television piece, I think the activities, right? We are people. Melanated people have soul, right? We have spirit, soul. So that those are things that, from a creative standpoint, meeting kids where they are, right? When it comes to activities and games, and we have the ingenuity. We made up games growing up. You know what I mean? Whatever we did, we just go outside and make something up and have fun, right? So how do we create stuff like that and add elements of education, math, whatever, arithmetic, vocabulary, right? All those different things into it. So I think when it comes to our babies, like Brother Khalid said, making sure that that you ask them what that may look like, right? Actually get their input when it comes to activities and incorporating bits and pieces of the educational component to it, so they can retain it, right? There's things like that, right? There's things that professors are doing. They have all these cool handshakes and stuff that we do to remember things, different rap songs and trap and whatever, jazz, what are you bouncing, but you remembering the information because it's like multiplication, 2 times 2, like, you got all these different things, right? But it's because it's us, though, it's like a spiritual connection to it. We are the creators of all of these things, right? So I think as far as the way that we offer, that we give the information out, and again, listening to the babies, getting their input, getting the parents, essential workers, stuff like that, and finally just being creative. We're creative people, so I think it kind of starting out with those things, I think, could be pretty beneficial.
Yeah, I'm wondering about what it could look like to have like purposeful watching, because I think what you're saying is right. Like, we have to limit how much we take in, but like, what does it mean if I sit down with my family tonight and watch, a documentary on Malcolm X, and then our focus for dinner is, our focus for dinner is talking about what we watched.
That's it.
Right. So what does it look like to do purposeful watching, and then thinking about not utilizing kind of mainstream ways of doing that as much as we can. So I'm thinking about Kweli TV, right, which is pretty much, like a Black Netflix. So you can watch stuff from Ghana, you can watch stuff from all across the diaspora to understand and to learn and to be entertained in a way that, you know, might not be expected. So I'm thinking purposeful watching could be something that we can do, right? But also thinking about something that my parents did, my mother in particular. You know, it's like, okay, here's this book, I'm gonna need a report.
That's it.
It's like, okay, here's the, you know, you gonna read this and in this amount of time, and guess what? I read it in that amount of time, and I can't stop now, right? Like, it's just something that has just become a part of my curiosity, my own development. And I think that that's a lot of times young people just need you know, a suggestion, right? Someone who knows them, someone who loves them, to say, hey, you know what? I thought about you with this book. Check out Wild Seed by Octavia Butler, right? I thought about you with The Bluest Eye. Check this book out, right? So thinking about, like, what would it mean for our young people to feel loved if I'm thinking about them with a piece of art, right? You know what? I thought about this artist. Maybe you should look into their work, or giving them a piece, right? So I think that, you know, being able to tap into students, just their own passions and ideas can be helpful. And some of them are going to like music. Some of them are going to like art. Some of them are going to like documentaries. It's just going to, you know, we just have to figure out how do we tap into all of those things.
What can we be doing? So for those of you who work in those higher learnings or in those spaces where you're representing us, what can we do to help you along with your mission? Because I think sometimes we just need instruction. Like when I'm talking to parents, I'm like, well, get on your school site council, because there ain't no Black people on there. You know what I mean? Like, what can we do to help you with your mission? Because, you know, you can have like the best mission and what you have will work, but we got to have something for the parents to do to help this along. What can we do?
I mean, I think, like you said, have a meeting before the meeting and a meeting after the meeting. I think that's going to be, whether it's the school board meeting, whether it's the PTA, right? Whatever it is, I think those are inroads to, you know, to creating spaces for justice for our students and also for knowledge. So I think that's kind of the ground level of what I'm thinking about, but also, you know, really wondering how much, like what support, figuring out what the communal support looks like. And so, you know, right now that might be, you know, shopping for elders, right, who can't go outside. And that is an educational tool as well. That is hands-on learning for young people, right? So I think, you know, really just being able to provide and do a communal analysis of what is needed, and then trying to figure out that need, because all of our communities look different. You know, I'm thinking of New Orleans in particular. You know, they have the only school system in the country that is all charter schools. Right. Wow. And so what does that, like, how terrifying can that be? But also that is a result of, you know, the rebuilding after Katrina. And so, you know, how at this point, you know, we don't know what that looks like for a lot of the young people there, but I think that we need to reimagine because other folks are reimagining as well. And so if we focus on what do our community members need and then filling the gap, I think that's a great start.
Right on.
So here's the thing. We have a lot of families that are now stuck together, right? And in this conditioning of America, the unfortunate part, what I hear a lot of folks, whether they're complaining or saying, why are you complaining? This is something that has been unprecedented. We've been conditioned to work 8 to 12 hours as a parent and the child to go to school for about 8 to 12 hours. So in reality, there's no real interaction except a morning wake up. By the time you get home, get your homework done, here's a meal, go to bed. And then maybe on the weekend, if you don't have activities, whether it's the parent or the child, you're constantly moving and grooving in a activity. So in reality, a lot of us don't necessarily know the everyday moments of the parent or the child. So it's almost a relearning of each other because we're now stuck. But in the same component, there's really no break because if we're all following the shelter in place, you're supposed to be home and I'm supposed to be home. So that makes me everything. Now with the social distance learning, as a parent, and especially a lot of the single parents that I've talked to, a lot of single mothers, they've now become the yard duty, the teacher, the counselor, the best friend, you know what I'm saying, the bully at some particular time, as well at the same time having to be on their computer, logging in and working. The amount of stress that is involved with this new idea that's been pushed on us after being conditioned, what would you say are some positive outcomes from it? And how can families start to readjust, especially if you think about some of those parents that may not be as educated to help develop skills that our children need when they could go run to a teacher or maybe even a classmate, where now there's a certain time they have to log in and log out. What would you guys say to that? Yeah, we throwing some darts at y'all, man.
That's good. That's a good dart.
Our people need to hear the truth.
This has been stressful as a parent, as an educator, as a person, right? It's stress. All roles have been stressful. It's a sharp, steep learning curve. So one of the things that I would suggest, and like how do we manage and how do we deal with that? Some self-care and some family self-care, right? Whatever that is, how can we figure out how to de-stress a little bit? So if that is some of that purposeful watching, or if that is a family book club, which my family is embarking on, just some ways to keep connected, but to also take our mind off the things that is going on that we don't have the control over. I think a lot of us, with this lack of control, this lack of being able to do things we once did, that's killing us. We already know that we the most stressed out people to begin with, and the most impacted by stress. So some of that being able to kind of de-stress in these ways, in some new ways, could possibly be helpful longevity-wise. But everybody's been thrown into something new. For this last 2 months, it's just been a sharp learning curve that has, I don't know how to really deal with it, to be perfectly honest with you, dealing with it on an everyday basis. But some of that stress and de-stressing has been critical for me and for my immediate family, for sure.
I think trying to find a way, and I don't have kids yet, not yet, but I would imagine just that stress and all that type of thing. I think trying to find a way, if I think about it, what some of the things I would try to do or I would impart on other folks, trying to find a way, because your kids are used to a schedule, right? They're used to this. So I think trying to find a way to create that same type of structure to where even though they're home, they can have a time to go exercise, go run around and burn off all that built up, energy that kids have, right? Go outside, go walk around your neighborhood, go, if you got to run somewhere, if you got to do some calisthenics, do some push-ups, some sit-ups or something to get, whatever that is, right? Burn all of that off, right? Go jump rope or whatever you got to do. Make sure that time is there. I think making sure that, you just, that self-care stuff too, right? Maybe watching a show together, watching some purposeful watching, doing some certain activities, some mindless things, drawing, whatever you want to do, some puzzles, like things that I think that the students the kids may be used to doing already, and trying as a parent to try to look at, okay, or as a guardian, I would say, try to say like, okay, how can I implement some of those aspects to kind of keep some continuity right? With what they've been receiving as far as their day-to-day schedules. And for like a lot of parents, I think also connecting with other parents, you know what I mean, seeing, you know, having these conversations and brainstorming together. What are you doing? What have you seen that's worked? I think is super helpful, right? Because, you know, like you said, King, like some parents may not have the skill set, the tools to be able to do that, right? So connecting with other people, you know, all that type of thing, I think would be super useful. But I think at the end of the day, like this is I try to be as optimistic, even amongst the chaos. Like this is a great time to, like, when we talk about the structure of the Black family and all of that, this is a time to reclaim our families, you know what I mean, in another way, right? In an evolved way as we go into the future, right? When it comes to education and how we have meaningful conversation and dialogue, get to learn each other and spend that time in an intentional way. So I think just trying to find ways to have part of the day-to-day stuff that the kids would experience through school and then kind of mixing it up, implementing your own flair to it and things that are purposeful and that reflect us, right? Reflect our lived experience, reflect us, but still give them the opportunity to do that mindless stuff, run around, and just kind of trying to have some type of structure. I have one of my friends, he's a teacher out in Buffalo. We grew up in New York. She's like doing like podcasts and videos on literally how to deal with your kids like day to day, like even when they have tantrums and stuff, right? Yeah, but definitely, I'm gonna send that link. And she's doing that for elementary school kids. She got I think she's got 2 or 3 daughters, and so she's talking about how reading books and all this type of thing. She's doing videos on this, right? And so I think folks are trying to find ways. This is a real thing. Folks are dealing with this every day. And like King Kali said, like, you know, we're getting new information every day. We're learning new things, and things are so uncertain. So, you know, just trying to impart information as we get it, you know, new ways, things that we can all share with one another to make sure that we're in a good place. So I'll definitely share that information with everybody too.
So I do have a question. Is there a space in education for elders and learning about history, and even in your personal family, as a way to empower the individual? Or self-love? Like, I just think sometimes we overlook stuff like your history and your family, and you know, whether it's good or bad, motivation comes in a lot of forms.
Yeah.
Is there a place for that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, you know, I'm just thinking about my own family and then also other families, right? Like this year would have been like our 97th family reunion, right? And so what does that mean for, you know, like 97 years in the United States? Like that, there's a lot of history when you go to the cookouts and when you go to auntie's houses, right? So I think being able to, you know, make space for that now would be, you know, having young people, you know, what would it look like to talk to the eldest person in the family, right? What would that look like? Creating a family book of stories, right? And so getting those oral histories and writing those things down, you know, can be an intergenerational way for young people to learn. And also for elders to learn from young people, right? Like how do you work this equipment so I can record it? So I think that those are things that we can think about. And, you know, if you haven't heard of StoryCorps, they do some really phenomenal work that will allow you to record, you know, your interview, and also they'll do some transcriptions for you, but also it's archived. So like in the Library of Congress. So thinking about what does it mean to, you know, tell histories, tell her stories, and figuring out like what we can do this just within our own families. It doesn't have to be, you know, something that goes outside of that. It can contribute to it.
Right on. Thank you, sis. Anybody else on that one?
I know I'm a tough act to follow.
You really are.
Shots fired. Booyah!
And one of the reasons why I asked that question is in Sacramento, we have a Hmong school. We have a Hmong school.
Okay.
I watch Latinos, they figure out how to do their stuff. They just start speaking Spanish and we ass out. And I'm not mad at none of those people, but I feel like places or schools I've been in where there's some emphasis on your culture and you being proud of that and knowing the stories. The performance level is much higher and the respect level is much higher. You know what I mean? And I don't always see that incorporated sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we do have a few schools out here. We have Fortune School, they doing their thing, putting things together in a sense of like that. So, I mean, we have to start from somewhere. I just think in this particular time, we always are talking about dismantling the system. I don't see any of our abolitionists, so-called revolutionary, let's go ahead and be radicalized. Ain't none of these niggas talking about nothing. There may be a few that are doing some things, maybe a few, but I've seen more have been talking about my stimulus check and when I can go outside and figuring out how the hell do I deal without the government supporting me? Like the system is being just desecrated right in front of our eyes. Like some of our dreams have come true, and it seems like this pandemic is more or less that we have to now be on our own compared to saying, thank goodness that we're on our own. And I feel like education has been the Achilles heel of so much of what is the Black elimination, because it's a they call it school to prison pipeline for a certain reason. So now we're going to start simulating the social distancing and celebrating it, where I'm like, well, how are we going to celebrate this? Because I know some of our kids will excel, but a lot of them, this is another way to get them outside of what they're already in. So in the confines of this situation, I look at it, right? The school has figured out a way. How are we going to make money off of Bad Johnny? But Bad Johnny no longer has to be a part of the culture. He won't get any of the assistance that he needs from people like us who look like us, who can assist him in different calibers of things besides only just education. He's now going to be in this neighborhood, in this house that probably is not going to have internet, that's not going to have multiple accesses to laptops. Because if you're a parent that has 4 kids, you can't have one laptop, because all kids are going to need to utilize that laptop probably at the same time. So who is going to support Bad Johnny to get up, to be motivated, and to clock in? Not that many people. But guess what? Now the school is still going to get a check from Bad Johnny, whether he's in the classroom or he's out. Because as long as he logs in or he's on the registration, here comes the money pool. I look at it from that lens. Then I also look at it from the fact that we're going to have more Black teachers out of jobs. We're going to have more schools closing, because why do you need these facilities if we're doing social distance learning? You can have one teacher now dealing with 300 kids at a time compared to what the set is right now. I just look at this stuff rolling down pretty badly, and I don't want us to get stuck in this earthquake when it happens. Shouldn't we just start preparing ourselves to exit stage left right now?
Before y'all answer, I just got to say this, Barry. I just got to say this. I think when Rome is falling, or whatever you want to call it, that's when opportunity happens. And none of us can guess that. So we be over here thinking we know Bad Johnny, but Bad Johnny used to be Malcolm Little. And he didn't wait for none of us to come rescue him. He figured out that he had to rescue himself. And I think we have to start understanding when something is falling apart, that's really a good thing. That's like you trying to save something that you know until it falls all the way down, then it can get all the way up. There's no way. All of this is divine order. All of this is divine order. And I know we like to feel like, what can we do? There's good Black teachers. I've met Black teachers who shouldn't be teaching nobody's child. I've had to report a Black male teacher who was talking to Black kids crazy as hell in one of the elementary schools. And it was a Black woman who was trying to tell me, well, he's a Black man. It was like, it don't make it right, sis. So it's kind of like, I feel like part of it is having things in place for when little Johnny or a little Sarah or whoever, Shamika and them, when they decide that, like, I don't like where I am, there'll be options in place for them to say, you know what, but I did meet somebody good along the way who wanted to help me, but I just wasn't ready. Because that's not the frequency I was on at the time. And I think sometimes we leave that out of the equation because there's no way you could prepare for that. All you could do is have things in place. I get that. But some of this stuff is all about you feeling so hungry. I'm thinking of the crack era. People were so hungry. They didn't go down to the welfare office. They figured out some way to survive. Because that's when people really save themselves. That's when people save themselves. And I feel like sometimes we put a lot of pressure on other people who've made it. But we can start by highlighting people who do take care of business. We be so focused on bad Johnny that we ain't looking at good Johnny who's struggling to be in the midst of bad Johnny. And the traumatic experiences he's having, but we feel like that person's not worth anything because they're supposed to be all right. No one's talking about that. I know Black kids who stopped going to certain schools and who started homeschooling and going to like school once a week to get their homework because they couldn't deal with the other kids. But nobody's talking about those people because they don't fit in the box. None of us can get a check for them. I've been doing a lot of home business for SCOE. Quite interesting. Some people gonna keep their kids out of school because they said my kid is doing much better. I watched SCOE give home books when it first happened. These are the kids who are there because they're in community school, so they're there because they're not doing good. Like most of it is behavior, you know. But they had all these resources, and I thought to myself, "Wow, what a great opportunity!" But you have to see it as an opportunity. You can't always see everything as like we're doing so awful. It's like sometimes when you're doing awful, you get ready to be good because now you're getting down to the nitty gritty. You getting to the bone. We like to dress shit up. That's just we're the most dressed up folks I've ever seen in my life. We'll be looking like $1 million and go home and barely got anything for yourself inside of yourself. We have all the resources. We have all. Thank God we're in Mississippi. Mississippi is the poorest state in the union. That's not where we are in Sacramento.
So do we look at this as opportunity?
I think some of us will and some of us won't.
It starts. It's perspective, right? Mental perspective.
For real.
A lot of the mind state has been socialized to think doom and gloom, to think of from a deficit perspective, deficit model. This pandemic, everything you hear about it on the news, radio, etc., is negative. It's all negative, all negative.
Exactly.
You start to think of it as a negative situation. Exactly. Now we have people on this call, people on this call, kings and queens, who have started to interject. Maybe there is a silver lining to this cloud. There is some positive ways that we can try to come out of this better, or even thrive through this and come out of it better. But I think it's a matter of perspective, a matter of how we look at it. Glass half full or glass half empty.
That's it. I also add, I think, that perspective is important. I think, again, the complexity, right? King Barry, you talked about, these so-called abolitionists and revolutionaries, right? Not doing certain things, right, to really separate and really create structures and things that are intentional for our people, right? That's people are so focused, right? When you do that, you have to know that you're going to lose something, right? You're going to lose some money, you're going to lose whatever, but you don't lose your spirit, you don't lose your dignity, you don't lose your integrity, right? You don't lose the love for your people. And a lot of folks don't, they looking at things from, a business. What am I going to lose? I have to sacrifice these things, right? Until we get to a different place where we understand that we're a collective, right? We've been socialized to think as individuals, right? Individualism. We don't think as a collective, right? As a village, lift as you climb, right? You know what I'm saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, right? African proverb, right? We don't think like that anymore, right? So I think we have to try to plant these seeds, right? It's like we're trying to plant multiple seeds when it comes to all these different isms and socializations that we've experienced, right? So even when it comes to the self-love piece and, using different language to even show love to one another. At Sac State, people always look at me crazy because I walk around calling everybody all kings and queens. So students going around calling each other king and queen now. Like, you know what I mean? But in an intentional way. Before that wasn't happening. And I do it in front of all the white administrators. Every time I see a black, what's up, king? And they be looking like, you're really good with the students. I'm like, they're me. I am them. They're, you know what I mean? Like just little small stuff, right? That can help change the culture, right? Even though that's something at a micro level, at a macro level, continuing to plant those seeds, right? Like you said, sis, Queen Roe, being from Harlem, right? we used to looking swaggy, looking nice, having our J's, whatever, being fresh. But then we empty in the inside because that's how we fill that void of our not having no self-esteem, not knowing who we are. You know what I mean? Being hurt. So I think a lot of times we have at the base of that, we have to heal as a people, right? Post-traumatic slave syndrome is real. Post-traumatic stress syndrome is real. So we have to heal first, right? And work through that mental piece. Because that's the number one thing, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, trap my body, you can't trap my mind. A lot of our minds are trapped. We in that mental bondage, right? And so I think working from the healing space, right? How to heal, work through those things. And then from there, building on the character, right? Building on things that in regards to who we are as people, learning about yourself, or learning about our history. Then you learn to love yourself. And once you love in my opinion, my humble opinion, once you love yourself, you love your people. Like because you see yourself, it's a reflection, right? So I don't want to do no harm, no ill will. I want to love on you. And right now we just trying to normalize loving each other.
Right.
We literally have to normalize that. You know what I'm saying? Like when I the other day I put a post up telling all black men, I love you, bro. And all my homies back home, they had to get used to that. Like, what you mean you love me? I'm like, I love you. And I would do it on purpose. Go back home to Harlem, tell my homies, I love you, bro. This is why. And they were like, get out of here with that. But now they saying it back. Now they saying it now. You know what I'm saying? So we have to plant those seeds, right? Because we've been socialized on all these negative things, looking at things from a deficit. So I think it's a multi-layered approach, bro. There's so many intricacies. So I think some of the low-hanging fruit we could tackle first, right? You know what I mean? The getting that healing, that mental stuff, right? And then understanding who we are as people, building that self-esteem, building that character, building that, right? Walking proudly, unapologetic as black folks and folks of African descent. And then from there, that's a springboard to a lot of other things. You know what I'm saying? Right now, it's like, and thinking as a collective. Right now, we think so individually. I want to make sure I have this, right? You know what I'm saying? I'll make sure I want to and one of the things I'll add too is defining what success looks like.
Right on.
Right? What is success for us, right? We me in the hood, like success is sports, drugs, and entertainment, right? Growing up in Harlem, like it was seldom that people who graduated school or did anything in a different route or whatever, you was called a nerd because you like to read, all right? But we've been socialized to not celebrate those things, and success was so limited that when you do other things, folks be like, "Oh, that's okay. He a firefighter. That's cool. That's no big deal. He doing it. That's all right. He ain't in the league though. He ain't got bars. He ain't right now. That's real rap. One of my sisters, I love her to death. We talk about it all the time. One of the things that clicked for me was I went back home to Harlem one year, and I was the ball player growing up, so I'm hooping or whatever, I was doing good in that, and my sister was like, "Yo, you supposed to have been the first one from the hood to go to the league. Like, you had that potential." I'm like, "Yeah, the ball helped me get to a certain level." I said, "But I am the first one from the hood to be an assistant dean at a college." And she was like, "Yeah, I guess that's cool." Like, it wasn't that same level of like excitement and enthusiasm around that, right? So we got to get to a place where we define what success looks like and how we are so bomb and so dynamic and powerful that we can do all things. All of those things that's success. That's cool. That's hip. That's swag, right? So we have to. It's a whole lot of seeds that we have to plant. But I think that low hanging fruit is the healing and working on our minds. You know what I mean? So we could get into real action, get into real purposeful action.
Lisa, what you say? What you say, Lisa?
I think that y'all are really, hitting on some really good things, but I'm also thinking about, I always try to think about who am I leaving out of the conversation? Like who is not included? And I think thinking about the increased rates of domestic violence and sexual assault within the home is something that we really have to talk about and figure out solutions to, because, it is not a good situation for everybody. And so, what does it look like to provide healing and love for survivors and current victims of those spaces? I think that's something that we need to brainstorm and think about, because there are some young people and adults who are being abused. And before the pandemic, they were being abused, but now in such close proximity, right, there's more abuse. And so how do we change that? How do we address it? Are some things that I'm thinking that we need to do.
Right on. Right on.
Agreed.
Right on. I just got the updated number. So one of the things is a woman here online. She's a nurse by trade. She's a Black woman, and she tracks all of the violence that's happening to Black women across the country. Not only does she track them, but she works with the families. So this morning she
Great
emails me.
work.
The number is up to 318 Black women that's been murdered by Black men. And see, we're not going to talk about that. Because it don't mean all Black men.
318 domestic violence.
Since January that has been murdered.
So that's in 5 months. We're talking about
From January, and half of
That's
that.
like what, 50, 60, something like
a
that?
month.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, so we know we have all these issues. I don't mean to, usually when I say something like that, it immediately, I don't know, this is what I've witnessed. When I talk about that particular piece, some people feel like it's being divisive. It is like, people are dead. How are we being divisive? We're not pointing out what people are learning in terms of the value of a Black woman's life or a Black girl's life.
Facts.
If one cop kills a Black person, not trying to clown, and a Black man in particular, we are angry as hell. So that has, and this is not just the low-hanging fruit. These are some of the people who are supposed to be the tallest trees we have in our forest. So we know that that's part of, I know somehow that fits into education, I feel, because if we're not educating young people to value, you know, that which will bring them life, you know what I'm saying, and their brother, which is themselves, then we're missing something here. And that's why I think part of it has absolutely nothing to do with a school system as well as it has first to do with the house you were brought up in, which is your first system. But if I'm watching who we think is valuable and who is not valuable, and we don't have a way of being accountable to each other, then we're in like a world of trouble. But I firmly believe, because I've seen it happen, if you take responsibility, I live in a world where a lot of people could correct me. And if somebody was out of pocket with me as an adult, I definitely had other adults I can go to and they would just lay the law down. Like I didn't even have to do it. But I come from that kind of world. I'm from North Philly. So the whole block know who I am, even when I don't know who I am. And there's just certain things I'm not doing. But I feel like that's a bigger part of it. And when we talk about education, we know that there's a systematic plot to treat us a particular way. Let's just be honest. Some kids be telling me about the racist teacher in their school. And I'm like, well, did you go tell your parents? Yeah, my mom ain't got time to come up here. So I'll be like, okay, we're going to have to deal with this. But you know what I mean? So, but I also think that first education comes from your immediate surroundings. See, we leave out that education system that we have. Like when you talked about the J's, we talk about how we learn about what's important. We talk about how we forget to talk about how we learn game. That's education. You know, we forget about all of those things. And instead of us flipping it, because I learned a long time ago, if I'm not saying that I don't act like the problem's not there, but I refuse to give it any power. I'm gonna be over here working on the solution. Because that's how I was raised. Like, that's probably really true, but I ain't got time to look at that shit right now. I got to get this part over here. And we do that all the time. That's like when young people want to buy something. I see this all the time. They'll find that money. They be like, Ms. Rowe, can I come do something? I'll be like, well, come on. You know, but it's kind of like, how do we make these other things just as important? So that when they go get the education, this is the part I learned since we brought up the Hmong earlier. And Hmong people don't come from a written culture, right? But they got something that we used to get all of the time. And so when they go into that system, they're able to pull back from their first system to work through the second system. And some of our people don't have that in the first system, which is your home life, which is your environment, which is your outside. So it's like, I'm in school, I got all these issues going on with people who's supposed to be here to help me, but I can't even take that home to get help. My mother would roll up on the school in a minute, wouldn't care. But I know parents that, girl, I ain't got time to go there. This girl is always, and it's like, oh no, we can't have that. Because that's tearing out that self-worth. Does that make sense? And I have a lot of respect for educators. I really do. Especially the ones who really get it, especially for the ones who, I had one school here in Sacramento that couldn't even have a BSU because none of the Black teachers wanted to be the advisor. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? Then I had to go get a white person to be the advisor, but then I had to work with parents like, y'all, she can't really be running this shit. like, we're gonna have to step up. But there was like 5 black educators. It was like they didn't want to do that.
Well, I mean, I think that the reality is, so often, again, we don't feel that our plight is to educate our young African American students with who they truly are, and that's the deficit by itself. And the stress level of the household, it creates the domestic violence. You know what I mean? Because again, folks ain't used to being at each other's forefront like this consecutively. You know what I mean? Folks is usually used to moving away. And I know for some, and I'm just going to speak for the black male perspective, you start figuring out some of these Negroes ain't who they really say they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought you was trapping outside getting money. He wasn't really doing that. You know what I mean? Or I thought you was doing A, B, and C. And that education part, it conditions us to just react, right? And then we react and we don't talk about the different things that are going on in our community. And that's why we have to have real conversations that dictate the happenings in our community. But at times, I don't even know if we really have a community, because when you look at our communities, nothing looks like us in our communities except the faces, not the industries that are in our communities. They don't look like us, not the education. It don't look like us. So I like to ask this question going into like this mask thing, right? And laptops that are a big issue, drawing it back right here. Do you guys feel there was a agenda push? Not say agenda. Do you feel like there was more of a concern to grab masks than to grab laptops, knowing that the key to the laptops, which is social distance learning, was going to help utilize and support the students? But it was like mask, and we barely heard about laptops being organized. Not saying that there weren't districts that got some laptops to all the students, but it was definitely a rush for masks to be given before even thinking about laptops to get into the communities.
Yeah. If we have time, bro, can I address what Queen Rowe mentioned real quick before we go into this question? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, do it.
All right. So first of all, like, just hearing that statistic about our black queens and our goddesses, man, that shit hurts. Like, that is painful. You know what I mean? Like, that is, I'm still was processing that as we was going through, all that type of thing, right? And I think again, having that value for our queens, for each other, man, that thing is, it's we killing ourselves, right? You know what I mean? And again, until we get to that part where we see one another, see our reflection in women and our people, I think it's going to continue to go that way. So I think one of the things that that we all can do, especially I'll speak specifically for black men, one of the things is we have to work through our emotions. Like, we have to work through knowing how to when it comes to knowing the right way to even understand that you have emotions, and how to deal with your anger, how to deal with your pain, your frustration, right? How to use your words, right? And a lot of us have been raised to man up, you acting like a girl, like you being soft and all of this, all that crap, right? That has done nothing but giving us the reaction of being physical anytime our emotions are in the way, right? Rather than using, our intellect, using our mind, right? Using our different tool set to express our frustration, express our stress, express our emotions, right? So we taking out on the folks near and dear to us, like our queens, our kids, whatever that may be. So, we got to hold each other accountable, man, as black men, and continuing to push this narrative. I know that's the thing, right? We got all these different things that are played for the black man, and different things, right? Jobs and mass incarceration, all these things, right? But we got to make sure that we're building each other up from an emotional intelligence level, right? To where we're taking care of that part of ourselves and our spirits and our emotions, so that we don't hurt and harm the people near and dear to us, like our queens and the folks who bring us into this world. So I just wanted to say that there's a good I've been watching a documentary. I actually bought a book, Cry Like a Man, recently. I'm reading that. I have another watching this documentary on like male versus man, and talking about your emotions, and with Dondre Whitfield, I think his last name is, the actor. He's talking to a bunch of like other black artists and folks in the industry about maleness and manhood, and how you matriculate into that, and like working through your emotions and your trauma, your stress healing, right, and then being able to move on. So I just wanted to just kind of get that up. I was in my spirit, and I wanted to make sure I articulated that because I didn't want to go into the next question without, you know, addressing that a little bit because that's painful, man. That hurts me. Yeah, no doubt. For sure.
So masks and laptops, what have we? Is it more of a concern for the mask before the laptop? What did you think, Lisa?
I mean, I think that, you know, the media does a good job of creating hysteria.
Oh my God.
So I think that that's something that we have to, you know, we just have to be mindful of media as an institution and how it has historically worked. And so I think a lot of times it can be, you know, distracting. I don't want to say the laptops, I don't want to prioritize one over the other, but I think that it's important to think about, like, what is it that we need? Some people might need food over laptops, right? Some people might need, you know, so those are the types of things we have to consider. But I think that, you know, in thinking about the mask and other, you know, protective equipment, we really have to think about who is allowed to even wear these, right? Who is allowed without being harassed, because we see Black folks being harassed when wearing the mask, right? And so, like, we're harassed without the mask, we're harassed with the mask,
With the mask, like,
right? So it's like it's a, you know, even when you're trying to be safe, people think you're threatening because of the perceptions of us. But I think that, you know, it really comes down to, you know, how are we creating masks? How are we doing it? What does it look like? Are we selling them? Right. So I think because really a lot of what, you know, this time has revealed to me is that, you know, the revolutionaries might not be in front of the mic. They might be behind a sewing machine. They might be in front of the stove, right?
Yeah.
And so it really comes down to, you know, just basic home economic skills.
Yeah.
And how are we developing those for, you know, the next generation as well.
Anybody
Always hard to follow up after you, Queen.
Don't give
King
Lisa.
Khalid, you wanna go? I could jump in.
You're already a big head anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Word. He just be, you
I
know
would
what I
agree.
mean?
It's hard to follow up after Queen Lisa, definitely. But I like the point that you made in terms of, is it laptop, mask, or is it food? I think that you know, everybody has rushed to do the mask thing, but at the same time, you know, we need some other resources we need some additional resources in addition to mask. It can't be one or the other.
Right.
It needs to be, you know, an equitable amount of all those different things. So we need a little bit piecemeal of all of it. So I would just say that, you know, I think the immediate need, right? People say, oh, I got to have the mask, I got to have a hand sanitizer and that type of thing. And okay, some of that is media driven. We don't know if social distance really works or not. I've seen people with and without masks. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about keeping our kids engaged and keeping these students engaged, you don't need a mask in the house necessarily. You need books, laptop, food, you know, maybe even a quiet space. If you can make a quiet space, something of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, like
I would add, can I add something, big bro?
Go ahead, King.
I would say, as far as you know, the misinformation, right? As far as now, we can get that. This is a whole nother can of worms that we, you know what I mean, that we might not have time for. When it, you know what I mean? When they talk about, like, so for me, I don't wear the mask, right? You know what I mean? Like, first of all, I'm a Black man in America. I'm not going nowhere with a mask on. Like, on top of that, right? We can't even jog.
Yeah.
We can't even jog outside in the daylight. I'm not walking around with a mask. You know what I mean? So, and I get it. Certain states are imposing certain regulations, right? I talked to my brothers in New York, right? You know what I mean? Because it's so concentrated.
Yeah.
You know, you in a jet, you know what I mean? So there's different, the way that the virus can travel is different, right? If somebody from the hood gets sick, you in an apartment that's 30 stories up with 25 apartments on each floor. If somebody get it, it's a high, you know, pass rate or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I get that. But in California, I'm not wearing a mask. And I think as far as the information when it comes to as far as the most vulnerable people to contracting COVID and like wearing a mask, I get that, right? So our elders, folks who have other ailments and other illnesses, right? They might need to wear it more, right? Of course, we have certain, so I think making sure that information is there, and particularly when it comes to folks of African descent, there's multiple needs, right? We need, of course, you might want a mask, but that doesn't supersede. Again, we've been social distancing, we've been in quarantine, we've been doing these things, right? So I think we try to inundate people with this information. Get a mask, and put the wall over people's eyes to not address the real inequities, right? The real things that need to be at the forefront of the conversation, like food, like access to basic needs, right? You know what I'm saying? Basic needs of food, shelter, right? All of these types of things, right? And laptops, all of that, right? So I think, I think the mask thing has been, right? I would say, I don't know if it's an agenda, but it's definitely pushed. And I have the filter to be like, yo, what's going on? I'm raising my eyebrow, like, why we keep talking about masks so much?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, right? And I get it, like, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to say, like, if you're wearing a mask, stop wearing it. Do what you're gonna do, but just know that, there is other things and basic needs that our people need specifically, right? Like, I know there's other populations of folks that have needs. There's needs that we need specifically, such as food, such as shelter, such as such as internet access, laptops, right? That we have to make sure that we keep talking about those things and pushing that to the forefront. At the same time, while it's not getting that much light, we need to make sure we keep pushing that message, because if we don't, we're going to keep seeing these things happen, and nobody's advocating on behalf of these things. So making sure that we just keep advocating. You know what I mean? So
and the biggest thing that I think that I fall into this whirlwind is, we talking masks, but we ain't talking about healthcare systems, right? We
right.
Masks in these communities, but we still got liquor store open. That the liquor stores in a lot of our communities,
that's essential in the hood. That's essential, right?
Yeah, because they're considered, because really, when it's broken down, they're really considered supermarket or grocery stores. You understand what I'm saying? So to us, they're liquor stores, but in reality, when you look at the heading of what they're under liquor, they're under supermarkets and grocery stores. You understand what I'm saying? Right. So I think that for me, and it's not knocking folks for pushing a certain idea, and I believe that, but we've gotten killed for hoodies, right? We've gotten killed. There was a young man that I worked a case that got killed for wearing the same kind of mask they're delivering to us, right? And he got killed by the police, and pretty much it was a story, and that's it. So my thing is, if we're talking about blacks have the most pre-existing conditioning and all this other stuff, well, why ain't we talking about the healthcare system or the lack thereof in our communities? Like, why aren't we pushing that? I'm not talking about pushing testing. I'm not talking about pushing a vaccine. I'm talking about getting us healthy, getting us right. Me and my brothers, the 3 Black Chef, in a food desert, in a food insecure community, we decided to give free food, because revolutionary acts are delivering some food to our people where they either can make themselves or they can take home and eat. So my idea of mask, and then when we talked about it, King, offline a day, like what I think was yesterday, when you were telling me the lack thereof, top access, I'm thinking that if we're going to go into this real next level, at least towards 2021, social distance learning, and the laptops aren't in every household, and I don't care if you have one or not, that schools or whoever is bringing these laptops, I just don't see the need to push something that is more easily to deliver compared to delivering what's harder to deliver. And I've seen this happen too often. When we're in this situation like this, we'll take the low-hanging fruit and not say, you know what, good, need that, but let's start talking about this other thing right now as well. Let's things at the same particular time, because you can't just sit there and say, well, we're going to do one phase. I'm tired of the phases. I'm tired of niggas with this phase idea. We're going to phase here and then go. No, if you can't, I had to say, it was so funny because there was a certain district member that I'm in his district, and I asked him to help support the food program that we started. He said, I ain't going to give you no money. That's basically what he said. So I sat there, did what I did, then turned around. The same person says, hey, I got masks for you. I told him, hey, if you couldn't support my food program, I don't want your masks. That's simple as that. and this is not really an attack on mask or no mask. It's just an attack on why do we, and I'm going to throw this question to Sister Lisa, and I want you two brothers to answer this. Why do we always, when these situations happen, because we've seen this in our lifetime a few times, focus on almost seemingly one thing? We say we're focusing on other things, but primarily it seems like you see a surge of one thing compared to the actual root of the problem. It's like kind of putting a Band-Aid to cancer. We know that there's immediate problems, but we'll just work on this because it's a more of a trending thing and it looks fashionable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that, you know, I'm just, I'm thinking about Du Bois, right? And he said a system cannot fail those it was never designed to protect. So I don't think that, I don't think the healthcare system is different in that regard. I think that those, you know, again, just bringing our ancestors in and thinking about what the lessons that they have left for us really provide us with a lens to understand, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I think that the focus, I mean, I guess it depends on the circles and then how much media you're consuming as well. Because if you're watching news all day, because it is on all day now, if you're watching it, you have a different perspective than if you're, you know, if you're eating fruits and vegetables all day, right? So, I mean, I think that, you know, conversations that I've had with some folks, it's like, okay, is your immune system up to par? Like, just, how many fruits and vegetables are you eating, right? So making sure at a baseline that we are kind of pulling in the lessons from Dr. Sebi, from Dr. Afrika, right? And so like thinking about what does that mean for our health anyhow? Right. So if I wasn't eating apples before the pandemic, then I'm not going to see a use for it necessarily now. So I think that just overall, you know, our survival around food is really important, but also conversations around gardening, around what does it look like to have or do urban farming, and having our own food, and also eating to live, not living to eat. And so, you know, really just kind of tapping into what do we need for our bodies to be well, right? And I think that can be a variety of things, with or without the mask, right? So I think that those are some of the conversations that we can have too.
Facts. I think that's on the money, and I think understanding that our bodies are just being African descent, our bodies are made differently, right? It's about Dr. Sebi and all these different things and the things that we consume, and talking about, you know, again, with the, you know, growing up back home, right? There were certain foods that I was exposed to, you know what I mean? Right? You go to a Chinese spot, you get, you know, you have 4 chicken wings, fried rice, you know what I mean? With the MSG all in it, you know what I mean? The skin all orange and all that. I get it, you know what I mean? But then like you learn other things, right? You learn about mucus and all these different things as far as diseases, and like with Dr. Sebi, that was the big thing, right? With our bodies and respiratory issues and things of that nature, right? I grew up with asthma, right? I'm in the jets, right? I'm in this environment, smoke everywhere, pollution, like all this different carbon emissions and stuff, and that environmental injustice that we all face on top of the food that we eat. So I think like continuing to push the narrative in regards to like a new way of like trying to, for us, as far as being people of African descent, how do we eat, and like try to break down, because again, these are habits that we've created over time, right? Even with how we eat, that socialization there, right? So you might think, oh, that stuff is nasty. I ain't eating that. Like, you know what I mean? Ew, I never had that. Like, whatever. I deal with that with my own siblings, right? Is my own family. We go through that too, as far as like, I'm not eating. You eat everything. Like, I ain't eating that. I never seen that before. But trying new things and implement that into our diets, right? So, and that accessibility, you know, farming, learning about those type of things, right? Making sure you're drinking the proper amount of water, and, you know, if you need to take vitamins, whatever that may be, I think that's super important. And to kind of address what you said, King Barry, I think like, you know, ancestor John Henry Clark said, you know, everything that touches your life politically, religiously, and socially must be a tool of your liberation, or should be thrown in the ash can of history, right? And I think one of the things that when it comes to this, to the land of America, like they're not trying to liberate us. They're not, you know what I mean? When you talk about, that's why they're not talking about the main thing and talking about the mask. They're not talking about the healthcare system. They're talking about the mask, right? They're not trying to liberate us, because that ultimate liberation for us, you know, that's their extermination, right? They ain't trying to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I think as much as us, we need to talk for us owning those things and pushing that, you know, keep continuing to push it. But I think about the why as to why they're not trying to do that for us, right? Because they know who we are. We don't know who we are, right? And so that's part of it too. So I think at the end of the day, you know what I mean, keep pushing a different narrative and talking about, as far as our bodies, what's good for our folks, our genetic makeup, and advocating for that. Because if we don't do it, nobody else will, and the government damn sure ain't gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Sebi's no longer here, and that's a whole other can of worms. You can talk about why that might be. Yeah. But you know what I mean, right? What he went through, you know, talking about, you know, big pharma and all these different things in medicine, and how our country needs, because of capitalism, there is a need for illness. There is a need for sickness. That is lucrative, right? That is, you can monetize illnesses, right? There's patents on things, right? There's patents on illnesses, right? So there's a relationship there, right? And when you think about Black people and our experiences, right, we're usually on the receiving end of this, because of again, they know who we are. We don't know who we are. So I think as long as we take ownership of that and continue to push this different message to our people, continuing to educate, continuing to, you know what I mean, to advocate, I think that's what we can do. And just putting our resources together, and being unapologetic about it, because nobody gonna save us. We gotta save ourselves. Big fact.
No doubt. King White, what you say on that? And we got 4 more minutes, family, before we cut down.
I would just say I agree with both what has just been said. As much as this is a health crisis, the pandemic and the mask and things like that are part of the, you know, a health issue. It's being made as a financial issue or an economic issue, and you know, we're Black people are considered consumers and not necessarily producers in this economy and world economy. So as much as can be kept for us continuing to contribute our dollars, our energy, our efforts to keeping the system going, there's no need for, you know, they'll give you a mask and not the healthcare, because if you give somebody a healthcare system for free, well, then you're losing that consistent dollar. Walmart shutting down, or Walgreens is shutting down, whatever other pharmacies may shut down. You know, if we start eliminating these health issues. So yeah, long story short, it's keeping the money thing going. It's important, not necessarily helping people get over it through this from a health standpoint.
Powerful. Family, we like to thank y'all. We could be talking for hours on end.
For real.
Got things they got to do. Folks got to go here, go there. Just before we just tap off, one thing that we want to tell our Black people, we're going to start with Lisa. One thing you want to tell your Black people in this pandemic, what they should be doing. One thing. Or one thing tagged in with 2, whatever.
I see you, you know, making sure I speak first, and I appreciate that and worry about that.
You're making it hard for us, bro. You're making it hard for us, man.
Yeah, you know what? Me and my sis, we go back like, man, when I used to come on the San Diego State campuses, and we used to rock and roll in our revolutionary minds. So it's good to see like folks that I've known for some time, and we've talked about a lot of these things, and watching our plights and still being able to reach out and be like, yo, we got some work to do, because now we've positioned ourselves to be bigger players in this big pond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hear you. I think that one thing that I would tell Black folks is to read, right? Whether it's, you know, books that you have, or a community space that has books, or if you need to borrow books, right? I think libraries are doing a lot of digital things with what they have on reserve. So I think I would say reading and eating to live, right? So, or oranges, apples, right? Just trying different fruits, and making sure your immune system is up, just in general, because that's what we should be doing anyhow. So feeding your mind and feeding your body.
Dope.
Ashay.
I say.
One of you brothers,
Yeah, Ken, you got it.
Yeah, I would say, stay connected. The village has kept us and been our strength since, 16, 19, and even before that. But since we got here, stay connected to the village, stay connected to your own village and the extended village, and collectively we'll be able to get through this from A to B, or from A to Z. And I would just say, yeah, stay connected as possible, as much as we can.
Bless.
I would add, it's Malcolm X Day. You know what I mean? Our great ancestor said, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. So when I think about education, right, I'm thinking about not the traditional education. I'm thinking about the education of who we are as people, right? Mind, body, and spirit, that connectivity to our ancestral memory, right? And who we are as people. We all have different religions and different beliefs, but at this moment in time, with all the chaos and hysteria, making sure that you're right in mind, body, and spirit, connecting to that energy, to not let all of this stuff penetrate your spirit, right? And looking at the perspective from the glass half full, and taking that energy and using that to have a renewed sense of who we are, who you are, loving ourselves, that esteem, right? And then to move us into a different direction. I think so that mind, body, and spirit piece is big, and it's all a part of a re-education, a relearning, unlearning the things we've learned, right? Unlearning it and relearning it, right? So reading, not watching as much TV. My TV is off pretty much most of the day. I might turn it on maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night.
But you still got that cell phone.
But I still got that cell phone. Right? So make sure you
I think the cell phone is more dangerous than the TV.
That's true too. That's true. That's a fact. The cell phone as well. That screen, those screens, right? iPad, whatever the screen is, you know what I'm saying? That's giving you information, making sure you're using it to learn something about yourself. Maybe one thing a day. Something about who we are as people. Challenge yourself for that. And I think at the end of the day, having a renewed sense of that love, right? At the end of the day, that's what's for us to move forward, we have to love ourselves and love our people, because that's the number one thing that's going to help us and connect us. Until we get to that place, we're going to keep being divided and being individuals, right? So really moving forward in that vein. So I know that was a lot, but that's kind of what I'm thinking on top of my head.
Bless.
Sure.
Queen Mama Ro, last words, baby.
Yeah, we are our own saviors. You are your own hero. Nobody's coming. It's all on you.
Yeah.
Facts.
Stay connected, family. Stay connected. Like I say, it's power and unity. That's why I'll say there's power and unity. But some of those folks, we don't all have to come together. So get those folks that are like-minded and connect. We have some like-minded folks here. We're appreciative that you guys have come, blessed us, bestowed us with the time and effort, unapologetically with your Black excellence selves.
Absolutely.
We appreciate
Thank you. Thank you. Peace and love. Thank you for everything.
Family.
Appreciate peace and love, family. Appreciate y'all.
No doubt.
All right.
Oh.